the first time here, so if there's any protocol or
You've already mastered it. You're sitting in the guest seat, and we're appreciative that you're here.
all right.
Because the people who are
Thank you very much. I appreciate the warm welcome. Any questions at any time, please feel free to dive in. I thought I would give a short presentation a little about to share with you the history of our company as it relates to the technology transformation that's occurring in Vermont at this point, and how it relates to the innovation of heat pumps in Vermont. My name is Mark Stevenson. I live in Burlington, Vermont. I moved to Vermont in 1983 as a solar and wind technician. I found employment here in the very beginnings of the technology transformation that we're experiencing today. In 1984, Ronald Reagan was elected president, and the industry I worked in lost all of its incentives, its meager incentives, and in 1985, I called a friend of mine in Richmond, Vermont, Marshall Paulson, seventh generation Vermonter, me the Flatlander. I said, let's start a business called Vermont Energy, a mechanical contracting business, plumbing, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. It's a conservative industry. It has to be. People are expecting you to get it right. It's one of the few businesses where you hand out your phone number and you ask people to call you 24 hours a day with feedback. So if you don't get it right, you get immediate feedback, and you keep getting feedback until you get it down. In addition to being a conservative business, at that time, it was one where it was very competitive. Lowest price won. And we started out with a little different philosophy. We were looking at energy as an investment, and that by spending a little more money, that we'll maybe be able to save over the long run. At the time, a few years after we started our business, there was an industry survey that was done. 1 out of 10 systems being installed in the area were energy efficient systems, considered energy efficient systems. Our business, it was the reverse of that. 9 out of 10 that we installed were energy efficient. So that was our niche, and our business began to take root.
Can I ask a quick, sorry to interrupt, quick question. So you're saying back in '84, only 1 out of 10 systems in the area was an energy efficient system?
Correct.
Yeah.
We were still connecting to the chimney. That ancient technology began many years ago. 15 years later, a representative from one of our wholesalers walked into our office, and he introduced, I said, I got a new product for you I want you to look at. And the people across the street said that you might be interested in this. And he showed me the first Mitsubishi mini split, the first heat pump I'd ever seen. Described how it worked. Nobody sells them in Vermont, but you might be interested. And that changed the course of our business. In the early 2000s, we saw immediate success with the product. It wasn't a dominant part of our mix, but it was definitely successful. Despite the limited number of options that were available and the no incentives, people were still willing to make large investments to purchase these products. With the innovation in refrigerants and the industry maturing, by 2005, we're installing our first primary heating systems, cold climate, what we today call cold climate heat pumps. There was a part of the building industry that specialized in energy efficient homes. So not only were they building beautiful and strong homes, but they were looking at energy just as we were as an investment and comfort. And they were asking us to install non-fossil fuel products in these homes to heat the space and the water. In 2012, we signed a contract with a fledgling solar company called Sun Comet, who today is one of the largest solar residential commercial solar companies in Vermont. And we expanded our territory from the Chittenden County area to northwest Vermont, with Chittenden, Franklin, Grand Isle, Loyal, Washington, and Addison counties. We now cover 6 counties. In 2016, heat pumps expanded to over 50% of our business. So we were a energy efficient oil and gas company that quickly transitioned to heat pumps. The industry was moving at lightning speed at that point. The global technology that was emerging on a national basis, largely in New England. It was the biggest market in the world for heat pumps. But the technical, the sales, and inventory, the comprehensive business support that the industry was providing, the training centers, and the infrastructure that goes into successfully selling, installing products like this that are fairly technical. The comprehensive warranties for the products that increased and gave confidence to both the contractors and the consumers in the industry. By 2018, not only were we doing new homes, but people were also asking us to do retrofits. So I walked into someone's home, sat at the kitchen table, and the conversation was, I'd like to get rid of my gas saver. I said, okay, let me see what we can do. And that conversation began to grow. And we started doing retrofits of existing homes to heat pumps throughout this territory. So in addition to the new homes, the supplemental heating and cooling, high efficiency AC, 2018, this became 70% of our business. We made a choice. We made a commitment. At that point, we stopped working with oil. It was a diminishing part of the business. We started to phase out plumbing, and we focused on the technology that was clearly emerging, and the demand from the public was clearly there. Between 2018 and today, we have grown 25 to 30% every year for the last 5 years. That growth requires new employees. We developed, because we couldn't put ads out for trained heat pump technicians that don't exist. We developed our own in-house apprenticeship. These are quality, high-paying jobs. We were hiring people with no experience, the right attitude, the right aptitude. There aren't a lot of unemployed people in Vermont, but there are a lot of underemployed people in Vermont. People who are stuck at a wage level, stuck at a job development. They're looking for opportunity. And people have been knocking at our door to get in. We've tripled our staff since 2018, and our business is continuing to grow. In August of this past year, 2022, we had our first $1 million sales. Those were all heat pumps. We, the consumer.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please.
It's great, and I don't want to interrupt. Look for what's next, but I have a quick question on wages. On wages. So for someone who comes into your intern program, what can you, I mean, it takes a while for them to know, right, we need a productive employee. what can you afford to pay them in that early phase? And what's their experience? I don't know what that is. 2-3 years in, sort of fully certified. What's the wage at that point?
Starting wage would be between $20 and $25 an hour at full benefits. Retirement, health, dental.
Okay.
Within 2 to 3 years, we have people moving up, earning $65,000, $75,000, $80,000. In 10 years, we've had people transition from the warehouse to sales and earning $100,000 to $150,000. No college education.
Great. You know, I mean, I'm asking for the data because we often talk about these, the clean energy economy is offering good wages, and
I believe those are good wages.
yeah, and I think what you're saying bears that out yet again. So thank you.
I'm winding to the end.
No, I'm not trying to rush you.
That's all right. That's all right.
At a certain point, when people talk about good wages, they say, "Well, what do you mean by that?" So I figure I might as well ask the numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The consumer demand is there. Do heat pumps work in Vermont? Oil boilers work in Vermont? Do gas furnaces work in Vermont? Of course they do. If they're installed, designed properly, serviced properly, these are properly functioning year-round systems. We've installed thousands of them for customers in the past 20 years. Will they work in my home or business? I have a fill in the blank, contemporary, a colonial, split level, a brick home, stone house, log house, Queen Anne Victorian. The answer is yes, we've done them all.
So I've heard from some folks that they have a, not an open floor plan, many like small spaces, and some of the things I hear are like, I'm gonna need 5 heat pumps to heat my home. What are the options for folks? Like if they, can they get one exterior unit with multiple interior? So that's one question. And then thinking about large buildings, like in schools or industrial sort of scale buildings.
The Burlington Ceiling Center on the waterfront.
Okay, I'm unfamiliar with that.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
The new ceiling center in the waterfront, Burlington. It's a 12,000 square foot building with warehouse and offices and education center, all heat pumps. Ronald McDonald House in Burlington.
Movie theater here in town, small.
Movie theater here in town, yep.
Was about a 1950 hunting camp made over.
Done.
You've done that? All right. I thought I was throwing you out.
No, it's hard to throw us curveballs. The industry has expanded, the product development has moved to meet the market. Some houses are going to require a larger investment. There's no question about that. Some are easier to do than others. Some I walk in 5 minutes, I've got it outlined. Others takes me an hour or 2. But the options are available. And we've implemented the technology in just about every kind of building that Vermont offers us over the last 20 plus years. It's not a new technology, but it's refined. It's of all the products that I sell, and I sell a lot, gas furnaces, ventilation systems, or boilers, water heaters. This is the industry that best understands their place and where they're going. and they've invested a tremendous amount of money in assisting businesses in helping to make that transition.
And when you say they, are we talking about Fujitsu and Mitsubishi, or who's the they that that's the?
Yes, all of them.
Is there a domestic manufacturer?
There's North American, some of the products are made in North America. Some of the products are made in the Americas. I don't follow each and every aspect. I know that a number of the companies with the latest Inflation Reduction Act and some incentives for manufacturing here on this part of the globe. I know that that's coming for some of the manufacturers that I've worked with.
I'm wondering how on some parts of the clean energy economy, we've seen huge reductions, not necessarily the total price, but the cost of solar has come down like 90% in a decade. I think there's similar numbers for batteries. What's going on cost-wise in the heat pump world? I'm wondering if it's more like computers where the cost didn't necessarily come down so much, but the performance kept going up.
It's more analogous to the computer.
So more performance for the same dollar investment.
Yep. Recently, as inflation's gone up, the prices are going up.
Could you just go over what technology is?
What the technology is?
Yeah, let's say I have never heard of a heat pump until this morning. What is that you're talking about?
The fossil fuel technology, which we all know, we'll start with the basics, the wood stove. Throw a log in, light it on fire, it burns, it generates heat. The firebox, you do the same thing with oil, you do the same thing with gas, combust, just like a wood stove. Heat pump isn't burning anything. It's essentially moving energy from one place to another. So we're absorbing that energy by using refrigerant that moves from a liquid to a gas. We're absorbing heat from, we'll start with air conditioning, or we'll start with your refrigerator. We're absorbing heat from inside your refrigerator, and we're dumping it out behind your refrigerator, all the cobwebs left. With air conditioning, we're extracting heat from a house, and we're moving it outside. Stand outside in front of that big square thing, and you put your head over it, it's hot. If you reverse that process, there's literally something called a reversing valve. You extract heat from outside, you deliver it inside. That's what a heat pump is.
You know, as a layperson, let's say in Vermont in January, there is no heat outside.
Did you know?
Au contraire.
Well, honestly, I have one of these. I know it works. I know it's, and seeing is proven. I actually get my emails, and I mean, it's a phone, but I can do my work on
You
this.
can't tell me how it works. You just
But I go to work every day. I wake up every day in the comfort of my heat pump year round. And so do thousands of my customers. There's heat in the air until we reach absolute zero. So if you take 20-degree air and you move it through a heat exchanger and it goes out the other side at 10 degrees, you've sucked heat energy out of that air.
What about when it's 20 below?
When it's 20 below, you move air through that heat exchanger, it comes out at 30 below, and you suck heat out of it, push it in.
So all we
It's
can
always warmer
minus
than
two
summer.
73, you can keep working. Something there to work with.
There's a limit to it, but yeah, like I say, the proper design, people ask me, oh, we need a backup for the system or, whatever. If somebody, for the last 38 years, if somebody asked me, would it be a good idea if I had a backup for my fill in the blank? Well, I think so. That's what the wood stove is in Vermont, or the gas stove has become in Vermont. People frequently have 2 or 3 sources of heat in their homes. They're playing the odds.
Senator Watson, well, Senator McCormick, you.
No,
I feel like I hear from folks that, heat pumps are not, that you have to have a backup, right? So are you seeing any construction now where it's just heat pumps? Like that is the source?
Absolutely.
Improved, okay.
Yeah.
And is there anything like trending in those buildings, like the scale, or is it just really large buildings? Is it residential? Like what, is there a pattern there, or is it all of the above?
All the above.
Okay.
So part of the design would be, am I installing, so a new house construction, if this is the primary system, I'm gonna look at it differently if it were supplemental. So instead of having 1 outdoor unit and 3 indoor units, I may have 3 outdoor units and 3 indoor units. So I have 3 separate systems. One of them goes down, boom, I've got 2 more. The way in which we designed the system is important.
So, I'm thinking about those 20 below days. So just for context, I teach physics, and that's why I teach kids about heat pumps and coefficients of performance and all of that. But at those 20 below days, the backup, so to speak, is that there's maybe a redundancy in that there may be another heat pump and so they're working together.
Or some resistance electric, or a little gas stove that doesn't use electricity.
Okay.
And don't forget, the reason that most people don't have
Right.
heat is because they don't have power.
Right. And that, sorry.
So we, if it's a house, we're gonna probably recommend something like that they can use for backup, there's the power. Or
Okay.
generator.
Okay. And so when people have fuel oil, they're still dependent on electricity to run that system, which is most people's backup, so to speak.
Excuse me?
Which is, so an oil system might be most Vermonters' backup.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay,
There's
so-
not a lot of oil out there anymore. Mostly propane.
Okay,
Most people have made the switch. I'm not sure why, but
okay, but that would also take electricity.
electricity. The only thing that doesn't are essentially the stove,
Yeah.
or the big stoves that operate.
there are propane heaters that have pilot lights.
Yes, yeah, so a stove, what I call a stove, yeah, so it's got a pilot light, it's got as opposed to an electronic system, it has a thermovoltaic, so the pilot light actually generates electricity to run the gas pump.
Thank you.
Senator White?
Thank you, Chairman Gray. I realized where we met. I used to work at Suncommon.
Oh,
So I was
Yeah.
like, why is this so familiar? So thank you, Mark, for being here today. So I fully understand heat pump technology. I've given many presentations on heat pumps and the connection between renewable energy and the amazing transition we can make with them. So I'm more interested in understanding how you see fuel dealers as they transition away from being fossil fuel dealers into your industry. Do you see a pathway for those folks to be a part of the industry? Do you need more people in the industry to start rolling out this technology further?
well, I'm not a fuel dealer, I don't sell fuel. That's one of the ways that I differentiate myself when I go out and people ask me. I install, as for many years, installed all the different options. So I would recommend to people or talk about all the options. We come up with what we thought was the best for them. What I have been involved with for many years and helped to actually develop some of the efficiency programs for Vermont Gas when it was starting, Burlington Electric, and Efficiency Vermont. That these fuel providers have helped to move the industry and assist Vermonters in making these transitions. You know, if my story started a few years back or a generation or two back, we could potentially be talking about whale oil, or we could be talking about coal or coal gas. But we're not. We know that those have come and gone. You know, we live with the repercussions of those things today. We've got a barge canal in my neighborhood. You know, I think I used to have a landlord. I don't anymore. Our fuel dealers are going to need to change to move ahead. I mean, the path is clear. I think if Neil Underhill were here today, he would talk to you about the transition of his organization. Worked with Neil at Burlington Electric, and you know, saw the transition that he was bringing there, and also uniquely to Vermont Gas as a gas utility in the state of Vermont. We have played a leadership role. A great state has played a leadership role in the nation for many years. We should continue to do so.
You mentioned Neil Underhill, and unfortunately, he was on the agenda and he's ill, and so we're going to be scheduling. So the question I have, we're you know, leaning into the transition to cleaner ways to heat, and one of the things we're always looking for, where will there be a rate limiting step along the way? And one of the things we hear about the most often is workforce. So what are your thoughts on workforce and who, well, so you're here advising us, you know, are there, you figured out creating your own internship program, and I'm wondering, I guess, one, do you find enough people that way? And do you have suggestions for how the state could support workforce in this area?
I'm glad you asked that question. Yes. I think there's a lot of opportunities. It's challenging for some businesses, particularly businesses that are growing, that are young, to create their own apprenticeship program. There's an expense to that that we were able to bear as a more mature company. But one of the areas that I think is most inadequate in the state is the electrical S license program. I think there's a electrical S license. So there are licenses that are required, many licenses that are required to be in our industry. We're talking about transitioning to an electric economy. We need electricians. We also need people who work in the mechanical side, who wire things, and they need specialist license to do that. It's almost impossible to get an electrical S license. Almost impossible. 90% of the people that 90% of the people that take the test fail. The training's inadequate. It is. I'm shaking my head, and it has been for 20 to 30 years. In order to perform the work, you need a license. So by expanding the training program, the pathway to that license, you will help move the industry. Those kinds of people will be very desirable to companies like ours. I think there's some great, HVAC programs which need to just brush up and work on the heat pump side. Online, courses just streamline and provide opportunities. But like I say, there's a lot of underemployed people in Vermont that are waiting for a chance at an opportunity. And I believe with the right push, with the right training available, part of it's just really kind of marketing what's there.
Who administers the S license programs? Is that Department of Public Safety? You know?
It's not my area in the business. Somebody else does that. Sorry.
Can someone who's in your apprentice program get enough on-the-job training to go successfully take the S license test?
No, they have to take the training program, and then they have to apply to take the test and see whether or not they're accepted. And then I think in all the years that I've training is a huge cornerstone of our business. In all the years, we had one person pass the test. I have everyone in my company has a natural gas license. 95% of them pass it. They take the class. It's rigorous. They pass it. Propane license, oil license. 90-95% of the people pass it.
Sounds like an anomaly, kind of puzzling.
It is a puzzling anomaly.
Senator Watson and Senator O'Connor.
I have questions about that, but the reason I raised my hand is because I was wondering, do you have a waiting list for customers? How deep is your waiting list?
For people who want heat pumps,
Yeah.
Our business model is really to install on demand. So our average waiting list is 3 to 4 weeks. During the winter, it slows down. But some people will, some contractors will boast about having 3 months worth of work. I would scream if I had 3 months worth of work on the board. I'm going to hire more people. People aren't going to wait. They want a product. They want it now.
And then, so I'm intrigued by this bottleneck of the electrical S license. So is that a license that is necessary to plan for a heat pump or to install it? To install a heat pump, what do you need that for?
You have to run control wiring to install a heat pump, and eventually you have to connect that that appliance to a, electrical S license allows you to do that. If I come into your home, you need a new furnace. So I'm going to have to do gas piping. I'm going to have to do venting, EPC. I'm going to have to do wiring, control. I'm going to put it all together. That's what a mechanic does. They integrate all the various trades to some aspect. So they need specialist license. Most of our guys have half a dozen licenses.
Okay, thank you.
Along the same lines, what role, if any, does Efficiency Vermont play? They've been doing things like, I forget the proper name, but like the Contractor Excellence Network or something like that. It's basically a list of certified contractors that they can list on their website so that when people are interested after an energy audit or something, follow up. They find you on that list, right?
Well, Efficiency Vermont does a tremendous amount for the industry, providing the biggest areas, I think, would be through their financing program and the incentive. They all add up. You know, the efficiency utility provides incentives, the local utilities provide incentive. Now the federal government's providing incentive. The list of contractors isn't, you know, we carefully track where our leads come from. It isn't from there. There's 50 names on the list, and we're Vermont Energy, so we're at the end.
Oh,
I'm not changing my name to Acme Energy.
Yeah, I mean, AAA, you know, first there's A, then there's AA, then there's AAA. Senator McCormick.
Staying on the subject of the test for the S license.
Yeah.
Are you saying that the test is harder than it ought to be, or that what's being tested for is very difficult?
Education's bad.
If the teacher, regardless of whatever the subject is, the teacher's, you know, has a class where 90% of the people fail, I think we'd say the teachers fail.
Or they don't do it?
Oh, two different teaching styles right here.
I would, so I'll start with a different train of thought. All the work that we, everything we do is fairly complex. The technology involves a lot of education. It's a computer, that's what we're working on. Our guys are smart. It is the education. I think it's the format, the way in which it's approached. A lot of information is not appropriate. A lot of the areas that are covered aren't appropriate, aren't things we ever see or experience. So I think the setup is set up improperly, and then the education isn't done, or the training program isn't done properly. So those need to be fixed, and they need to be fixed quickly.
Who gives the test? Is this the state or
The
is it?
state of Vermont.
The state, okay.
sorry.
There was a class like once every 6 months, and the last one they canceled. We had 6 people signed up.
And just to follow up on that, so do you send your employees during your own working hours to go to class? I mean, so I work at the trades down in Addison County, and I talked to a plumber who's pretty frustrated with the system. He said, well, I have my apprentice all day long, and then he's got to go to class. It's in the early evening. But so he's paying the person to go to class. That's one expense. And sometimes they need to leave the regular paid job in order to be going on to do this stuff. And then it also takes 4 years to get all the way through. So it's I'd say a very restrictive pipeline, and he can only do one apprentice at a time as a master plumber. So he can only replace himself. He can't really grow his workforce.
Yeah, the plumbing apprenticeship, electrical apprenticeship, those are long training programs. Most of ours are, 6 months, 3 months, 6 weeks, something like that. Refrigeration certification, I think, is done in a weekend. There are refresher courses that are required for all these. So Vermont Energy, not all the classes, if they're offered during the day, we pay for their time. We send guys to Massachusetts for Mitsubishi training 1, 2, and 3. We pay for their hotel, we pay for their time, we pay for their transportation. In addition to that, we have a tool and training account. They earn $1 an hour for every hour that they work. It's about $2,000 a year. That money is used to pay for any training or any tool that they need to get their job done to do it better. And when they pass and get a certification for a course, if they get a successful grade, they get an automatic raise.
You can see why you have employees. Senator McCormick?
Do you have recommendations to this committee? We're developing legislation right now as to what changes would be made in training and testing for the license. Or could you?
I think in addition to the Electrical S program, which is non-functional at this point, I think the state just needs to market what's out there and to encourage kids coming out of high school or people in transition and employment. You know, we hired, I got a, you know, somebody from Flatbread, somebody from, you know, three people from the restaurant industry. I got people from, you know, various jobs that were the pandemic put them out of business. You know, we were an in-home business. We don't operate, you know, remotely. We operate every day in people's homes. We spent a month in the office figuring out what we were going to do. We opened up our doors and we started hiring more people from day one of the pandemic.
I'm troubled by the idea that the test is a setup that for people who are not adequately trained to pass it. If we were just selling the idea to people getting into the job market, we'd be sort of setting them up. We'd be baiting a trap for them. What would be different in the training and testing program?
Well, that problem needs to be fixed, but there are HVAC courses in our tech schools that are available, and we've had people who have proactively gone to take those. They're more desirable. That shows initiative, and they've got some basic understanding of what we do. We're still going to do our apprenticeship program and start in the mailroom, so to speak. For us, that's the warehouse. But
Then another question at a different topic, just trying to sell this to the public. How much more expensive is it to get started with heat pumps than to stick in a propane furnace?
Yeah, yesterday I went to a client's home. Someone actually I've worked with for many years. He was a builder, he's retired. He's got a propane furnace. He's on move. Propane's the most expensive fuel that we can buy around. Heat your home. He's going to save it's going to be $6,000. We outlined the numbers. $6,000 to put a new high efficiency gas furnace in. His gas furnace was 30 years old, so he's a new one. It would be another $6,000 minus maybe some rebates and Inflation Reduction Act to add a centrally ducted heat pump, which might do 30 or 40% of its heating. And it was going to be close to $12,000, again, minus Inflation Reduction Act incentives or whatever, to put in a fully functioning cold climate heat pump that would just totally take the place of that furnace. His choices to pricing of the cold climate heat pump.
And how long for the payback? The savings.
I've sat at the kitchen table for 40 years with having that conversation with people about high efficiency, about heat pumps. And we talk about, you might talk about dollar per BTU or, but honestly, the number of times that somebody's asked me to do a return on investment might be 1 in 100. People are practical. It's simple philosophy. I'm gonna pay more now, but I'm gonna save money. That makes sense to me. Conservation is a Vermont ethic that has been here since the state was founded, and people believe in it. We make decisions here about what we want to do, and that's what Vermonters have clearly said since we started our business.
I made a remark a few minutes ago, I want to make it clear, when Senator White was my student, she always did the business.
Thank you.
For the record.
For the record.
Glad you cleared that up. I was getting a little nervous about that.
Oh my gosh.
So that's fascinating to me that 1 in 100 asks you about ROI, because as we're designing a program, we have a fiduciary responsibility to know that we're designing a program that will be affordable for Vermonters and will deliver the kind of environmental benefits that we need to have, because we have requirements in law to reduce emissions. And then, so the Affordable Heat Act, the whole notion is we have a requirement. We need to reduce emissions. What's the most cost-effective way to do it, with an eye especially on the budgets of low and moderate income households. So it's interesting. So we're thinking about that pretty much nonstop. And so it's fascinating to me that you have only 1 in 100 people asking to cost out the payback period. So right.
Thank you. Right. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that, I obviously understand that these programs need to be based upon that. And we need to head in the right direction. It needs to make sense. And we carefully study that. We understand that, the dollar per BTU breakdown of each fuel, the analysis. By the way, the state used to put out a monthly fuel price report, which basically analyzed dollar per BTU, which is a very valuable tool for people to look at. And it changes monthly. And they stopped doing it. And it was a real key guide to ourselves and consumers. And I would suggest that.
Who was producing it? I'm sorry, I missed that. Was it Department of Public Service?
I don't know. If you Google it, you can still find the old ones. Fuel analysis. State of
Was
Vermont.
it Vermont specific or?
It was Vermont specific, and it took every fuel, we broke it down to dollar per BTU. Gallons, therms, quarts. It's not easy to make, everything. It's a gallon of oil, a gallon of propane. They're not the same. They're not the same number of BTUs.
State does the same thing now for cattle, cutters, canners, how much per pound, what they start, how much is a dozen eggs, versus pork, sell for it by the hanging weight. It's a common service in ag department.
That's important information. Didn't Suncom used to have a deal where they figured out what you were saving, and that was your monthly payment on your loan?
Yes, there are many different loan products and financing products that can help you, like what we did with our weatherization, and we could have combined it with a heat pump so that you're actually getting what you would have ideally paid in fuel costs, but instead you're saving with the weatherization and the lower electric bill. The delta between what you were paying for fossil fuel and what you're paying for both weatherization and electric heating is lower. So they do try to match that up for a lot of folks. But that's not unique to Suncom, but they are.
Their investments are private, are almost all financed, and they're larger than ours typically.
Thank you. So as I mentioned before, we were live on the air. I'm the daughter of a licensed electrician plumber. And one of the things that really concerns me is that my dad's cohort of fellow employees or fellow contractors are all aging out. And there seems to be a retirement cliff that we're starting to hit. And I'm wondering if you see in your workforce things that we as a legislature can do to either soften that cushion so that folks like my dad aren't getting calls from people who are desperate because there's no one else they can call, or we can start to add more of that server industry or people who work in other fields into it. I'm wondering how we can start to address that cliff of people leaving the industry for.
Well, again, I think it's marketing of this employment track. It may also be some incentives for apprenticeship programs in businesses that help to kind of offset the cost. We've worked out a way to sort of keep them employed while they're learning, as opposed to being in school. So you paid to play model, but it's see a lot of kids pursue. Some people college is the way to go. I went to college myself. My partner did. The majority of people in our company did not. They might have been the ones who sat in the back of the room and paper around or whatever. Doesn't mean they're not smart kids.
We need a lot of teachers or ex-teachers.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, when I had heat pumps installed in my house by a company, it was just beginning to do heat pumps. I go down to the basement, here's one of my former students who used to sit in the back of the room and throw airplanes. And I says, what are you doing here? He says, I'm making money. He was one of the guys that installed the heat pumps, and he put the same enthusiasm into doing heat pumps as he did to his paper airplanes.
Yeah. Initially, we employed in the 80s. Everyone who worked for us was had a French Canadian last name and grew up on a dairy farm.
Yeah.
There aren't any more of those. I wish there were, but
They're all independent contractors now. They live in Barry, Washington, Northern Williamstown.
And then I just have one other question, which is we haven't actually delved into with your business. There are other benefits to heat pumps like air purification, cooling, all of that good stuff that you don't get with a traditional fossil fuel way of heating your home. But knowing that, we haven't talked about weatherization and the combination of that with heat pumps. And I'm wondering if you do you do weatherization? Do you partner on weatherization? And how does that factor into the way that you run your business and where you see the market going?
We focus on what we do. It's hard to be good at one thing. And that's what our job is, to be good at heat pumps and high efficiency gas, which is really what our market is at this point. Rephrase the question again.
Sure. So when you install a heat pump, we've heard that there's concerns from the administration that based on our goals, we're just going to be throwing heat pumps in these drafty old homes, and that why are we just switching this fuel to another thing? And I'm wondering if you see in your business people taking the steps to weatherize, or the industry growing to include that in a business like yours.
So we can put together a plan that says, here's the first step you should take. Here's the second step, here's the third step, and here's the fourth step. And let's do them in this order. And that's going to be the best way to do it. And then we hit reality. Somebody's furnace goes out. Somebody's got an interest over here. It's not how we make decisions. It's not how technology transitions. It doesn't happen in a straight line. That doesn't mean that when we go to someone's home, we spend a lot of time educating on what they do, what they should do. Ask them to look into the programs. Sure. Whether one could argue that it's more important that they weatherize for the oil that they're burning. it's a critical part. It needs to happen. It's not my business. It's not what I'm focused on. But I have trained. I've had trainers from energy efficient weatherization programs come into our company and describe what the building envelope is, how that affects comfort. People are asking us to provide comfort.
Yes.
So part of what we do as a service is to offer information about things that will add to the comfort. I can make a recommendation and be a hero, that's great. I don't have to do anything, don't have to do much. So we do it a lot. The Vermont Gas, we're based out of, and the heart of our business is in Chittenden County. So we've coupled with Vermont Gas's efficiency program. That's huge. A lot of our clients do it. A lot of them do it.
Thank you.
Could you estimate what percentage of people that you talk with have done a home energy audit? So they've paused and done that sort of planning step. And now they're saying, okay, I see I have my plan. Now I'm going to look into how we're going to make the place warm piece of that plan.
I mean, more and more, there's very few houses at this point that haven't had something done in the last 30 years. That doesn't mean that they're not ready for the next level. When I bought my house 28 years ago, it was a Queen Anne Victorian carriage barn. It was empty. There was nothing in it, which was great because then I could have the whole thing insulated properly. But I'm ready for the next phase again of foam around the sills, and as soon as I can clean it out, I'll get to that. Yeah, it's in process, step by step.
Do you have the capacity to put in emergency heat of the same sort that someone currently has? So if their oil-fired boiler goes out and they say, I'd love to be going to heat pumps, but it's winter and I need heat now. I mean, sometimes we've heard stories about how we miss the chance to move to something more efficient because the demand is that we just need replacement heat right away. And lo and behold, there's a boiler just sitting in somebody's warehouse and they can pick it up and be there within a day. But the transition to heat pumps could take a number of weeks. How do you deal with that?
That's a great question. So I have an example of a house in Shelburne that I looked at last week. Their oil furnace went down. The oil tank is underground. They got issues. The ductwork is actually below the slab. That's a problem. They got a mess. Maybe I shouldn't say this.
Yeah, what's the address?
But we're looking at a heat pump solution for them. Between that and the electrical work, it's maybe $25,000. If they've got a series of little electric space heaters around the house. If they call me, when I get back to the office, if they say go, we're installing it next week, we'll put it in 1-2 days max. We do most of our work in 1 day.
Another thing I'm wondering about is it would seem as though in a situation like that, or maybe not that one, anyway, a situation where someone has an oil-fired hydronic system for 80 years and they would like to make a switch. Is there any technology currently available, heat pump technology, that lets you basically swap out the oil-fired boiler, swap in something that can send all that heat out to the house through the hydronic system?
The technology, so the answer is that there is technology that does that. It's not quite ready for the way that we do it. We're looking at, we can get into a lot of the details, but they produce lower temperature heat, where our systems are designed for higher temperature heat production. The bottom line is they're just getting to cold climate capabilities. They're very expensive. They're clunky. And the infrastructure of the industry isn't here. So we don't see a lot going in. They're not plug and play the way the rest of our options are.
It would seem like, and I don't know, just looking from outside, that could be sort of the killer app, just swap out your oil fired boiler, swap it, and then you're not running, you don't have to, all the work is just in the basement.
Seeing where we've come from and where we are today, and looking ahead at where we're going to be in 10 to 15 years, that'll be a solution. But we're not there yet.
So I have a question. Since we have somebody who's not coming, I don't want to necessarily ask more questions if we have time.
Yeah,
Time is okay?
if Mr. Stevenson's willing to keep on track of
Okay.
this.
I'm
Without
at your
Mr.
service.
Lunderville here, we have the luxury of time.
Okay. Well, we have this other person.
No, you have an old copy. You
Oh,
can go
okay.
to the website, it's so current.
Gosh. So one of the things that I am starting to hear a little bit of buzz about is district geothermal. Have you heard anything about that? You done any? I mean, I wonder if you've done any of those, or if that's like on your radar at all.
So I'm a resident of Burlington, as I mentioned. I've done 2 terms as commissioner at Burlington Electric. And we talked a lot about district heating as an option. That's something that's coming to the forefront at this point. I have a degree in energy resource policy from the University of Wisconsin. So my background is in policy and looking at these kinds of options. It isn't something that we practice. It's really kind of more of a planned unit development or something like that. We see these kinds of examples all over the world. They're done. I'm pragmatic about it as a contractor who needs to wake up and pay the bills, and I have that entrepreneurial spirit of paying my bills. And we look at what's available to us today and what options we can provide our customers.
So Vermont's chilly. I know you've helpfully pointed out that even at -20, you can still suck some heat out of the air. And one of the other technologies that people have pointed to as maybe better suited to a cold climate is a ground source heat pump. So do you deal at all with ground source heat pumps, and what's your take on how useful they are? I know it seems like there's a much higher upfront cost. Talk about that a little bit.
So in my neighborhood, there's lots of good examples. Champlain, I live in the Champlain College neighborhood. My neighbor has, these are facilities. So talk about upfront costs, about drilling wells. That's where the technology is great. Awesome. The new innovation center on the waterfront, where the old Blodgett's factory used to be. That's all
Hulu.
that's all ground source heat pump. That technology is practiced, the application. So appropriate technology is the term coined a long time ago, but each application, we look at what the appropriate technology is. Groundwater heat source tends to be better served for facilities, or there's facility manager, or there's someone maintaining it. It's more technical, it's more money up front. I've done it before for residential. And we have that direct line of feedback, call our phone number. And, you know, that project, in retrospect, the owner would say, I should have just put a heat pump downstairs, you know, a mini split downstairs, and save myself $50,000 and lots of headaches.
We also doing, heat pump hot water heaters.
Yes,
Is that growing? I mean, are more and more people asking for, I mean, 5 years ago, I hardly ever heard about them. Now I hear about them more.
yeah. It's been slower to gain traction. It's a little clunkier. They're taller. Some of our basements are shorter. You know, they're heavy. Some of our basement, they're bigger round. Some of our basement stairs don't support them or fit them. It makes the space, it draws heat from the space that it's in. Can't put it in a closet.
So it makes the basement colder.
Makes the basement cooler. That's an example where we really recommend that people weatherize their basement. You know, if I walk into a basement, it's all been foamed around the perimeter and whatever, I'm like, we're in. I can dehumidify your basement, get rid of your dehumidifier. I think we can outcompete the natural gas water heater that's sitting there that runs 50% to the chimney. Maybe Neil could tell you more about that when he comes.
Okay, so I just wanted to double back to the source of employees, because we've heard a lot about the workforce being the biggest bottleneck to making the transitions we're talking about, whether we're talking about people who can install cold heat pumps or solar or weatherize. So do you get folks out of the career tech centers like Essex? You have 18-year-olds coming out of that program that know a little something, got an introduction, they joined their apprenticeship program.
I'm trying to think of the last time where that happened. I can't remember.
How about Vermont Tech?
There's an HVAC program that's like 9 months or 6 that occurs, and that's in Williston. I think that's part of the Vermont Tech programming, and we have hired people out of that. The school in Norwich, is that where Vermont, or no, not Norwich, but Randolph, yeah. I don't think we've ever hired anybody out of that.
That's disturbing.
40 years of business.
So we've covered a lot of things. I'm looking to see if anybody has any more questions. Thanks for your generosity. Senator McDonald?
Do you find that if you train your own people, it's more cost effective than having a Randolph, Vermont Tech or something like that training?
I've had the Vermont Tech program, which is based out of Williston. I've had 2 or 3 people in the last few years come through that program on their own. They were people who were working in other trades, and they were doing that as night school to better themselves. I hire on attitude and aptitude, not on technical skill. That's more important to me, those 2 trades.
Thanks. I'm sorry, we didn't cut you off.
Did that answer your question?
Was in the military, the war of Vietnam switched to helicopters. The military ran courses 24 hours a day to teach people how to maintain helicopters.
Yeah.
Imagine that's what but they were trying to train people to do their own helicopters, not going to Bell Corporation to have Bell Corporation train people to do it.
There isn't a lot of training out there specifically for heat pumps and for what we do and how we do it. There aren't many companies that actually do what we do and how we do it. So we're not hiring from other people. We have to hire and train.
Give me 2 paper airplanes in my class that did my heat pumps. I was trained by the people who put in my heat pumps.
Yeah. Hands-on.
Do you have any problems with retaining employees? You know, do you ever feel like you're the training center and people go off, or people tend to stay?
Our employee retention is very high. But I'm proud that people go out. I cannot fault someone for going out and wanting to start their own business. That will help to grow our industry, whether it's here or wherever they move to.
So you don't do any like non-compete clauses? Okay. Cool, thanks.
Send you a business proposition.
Witness.
Okay, well, thanks so much for coming in and giving us a better window into the world of heat pumps, which Portable Heat Act doesn't prescribe, but it lists as one of the kinds of measures that will help people reduce emissions. On the list of things to be considered. It's good to hear that on your side of the table, sounds like you're meeting with plenty of success.
Having read and been involved in just sort of the proofread of this particular bill, I see this as a employment bill and one for economic growth.
Mr. Coda's here, but I need to remind me to ask a question I had in my head. Do you have people coming to you from the traditional sort of oil-fired boiler trades? People said, I'm interested in switching
Well,
over.
that was our trade in
That was-
1985. That's what we did. Well, we sold high efficiency equipment, but yeah, we were oil, propane, natural gas, wood.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So we're running a little ahead, and witnesses who won't know that we're running a little ahead. But other than Mr. Coda, who's already here, he's early. Do you are you game for starting a little early? Why don't we take 15 minutes now and start again at 5.